There are very few things that I know of anyway that got as much hype, anticipation, and expectations as the final season of Game of Thrones. Like, that thing is huge, right? Like, they cross-marketing, Budweiser commercials, all kinds of... I mean, I've got a phone charger, a Game of Thrones phone charger that my wife got me from AT&T. They went all out. They raised the bar, up to this point when it comes to a series. I mean, it was like fever pitch is the anticipation. And sometimes they don't meet or exceed that, right? Sometimes they don't. Sometimes they do. It's very difficult, though, when you have such a high bar already set. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the ACS Universe Podcast. This is episode 6. I'm ACS. And Game of Thrones, this final season. And look, this isn't going to be my last podcast where I talk about Game of Thrones forever. I know that because I love it too much. But probably for a while, you know what I'm saying? As I let the final season simmer down and let everybody just, move on to some other things that I love and come back to Game of Thrones at some point in time, because I know I am. This is going to be probably a kind of a lengthy podcast. I'm going to try not to make it too long because I know people got shit to do, but because I didn't get to do a podcast after episode 5. So I'm going to cover the last 2 episodes in the final season. Then I'm going to cover season 8 in general, my thoughts on it, opinions or whatever. And then season 1, episode 1 through season 8, episode 6, the entire series, my final thoughts on it, where it stands with me. And if it's still in my eyes, the greatest series ever. All right. These are my opinions. These are my thoughts, just my feelings on several topics within the world of Game of Thrones. There's going to be a lot of you who agree with me. There's going to be a lot of you who don't agree with me. And that's fine. That's the beautiful thing about being part of the human race is you can disagree with people, right? That spurs discussions and things of that nature. However, negativity, and you know what kind of negativity I'm talking about, will be swiftly deleted, blocked, whatever I have to do, because I've always said that's the problem with fandom, is that you cannot just simply disagree with somebody. I mean, you get called the ugliest shit in the world by people, the writers, because they didn't do, you had a theory on what you thought was going to happen during the season. It didn't come to fruition, so you're mad at them. Or, in general, just because people feel like you should feel the same way they do, or fuck you. So, because the past couple of weeks, I've seen some of the ugliest shit I've ever seen on social media around Game of Thrones. And it's people I don't even know. If you follow the hashtag for the throne or hashtag Game of Thrones, then, you tend to see all of this out here. And people have such a big problem with the direction they went this season. And it all boils down to, so but don't let me jump off. So keep, if you want to post in the comments, you disagree, you want to start a discussion, that's perfectly fine. I'm down with that. But the ugly shit's going to be deleted and you will be blocked. So, because I ain't got time to be dealing with that kind of negativity. You're going to hear me say this. I've said this before. I've seen so many other people say it in the past couple of weeks. Season 7 and season 8 should have both been 10 episodes apiece. Hands down. Should have been 10 episodes apiece, at least. I heard Jeremy John said something about 10 seasons. That's a bit much for me. But season 7 and 8 should have been 10 episodes apiece. That would have gave us 7 more episodes. Just think. And I was talking to a friend about it the other day, and I was like, dude, just think. If season 7 was 10 episodes and season 8 was as well, then episode 3 of this season, the Battle of Winterfell, which is, that's what I call it. Fuck the Long Night. That title sucks. The Battle of Winterfell would have been season 7's finale. I mean, I'm getting goosebumps right now just thinking about like Arya killing the Night King and then the season ending, and you happen to wait. That way it would have given you 10 episodes to finish out the story with Cersei. And then you have, if you were going to take it the direction of having Daenerys spiral, into darkness, then you have plenty more episodes to tell that story. And it doesn't seem like she just snapped and turned into that in 2 episodes. So yeah, I'm gonna say that. I'm gonna keep on saying that because that's one of the things I believe. I mean, we're not gonna get. And hey, that petition bullshit, dude. you can miss me with that. I mean, so she said it perfectly. I seen her tweet where she said that's so disrespectful to all of the people behind the camera, to all of the people who put their lives, years of their life for this series, to ask them to redo a whole season. And besides that fact, the actors, man, I can't even see them like spending another 2 years of their careers refilming something that they've already filmed. So that's about, good luck with that shit, right? All right, so let's jump right to it. Episode 5, The Bells. My biggest gripe with that episode, and you should already know this, is that Cersei did not deserve a fucking good death, okay? She got a good death. She got to die in the arms of the one she loved. No. Cersei gets a Ramsay-style death with like hounds, like straight biting her fucking face off. That's what she should have got. That's also, one of the main problems that a lot of people had too with it was like Daenerys got this kind of death, Cersei got this kind of death. You know what I'm saying? And it just didn't seem to follow those characters throughout the entire series for them to go out on that note. Okay, so I'm forever gonna be pissed off about Cersei getting that fucking, she gets crushed by rubble. No. That's okay. I'm gonna get off that subject because it kind of gets me fired up. Okay, I have no problem with them taking Daenerys in that direction. That's what they wanted to do. I just felt like they didn't give it enough time. And then, I can remember looking at the look on her face change as the camera zoomed in, the bells ringing, and I'm like, she's about to do some grimy shit. And my first thought was maybe she's just going to go to the Red Keep and just burn the top of that tower where Cersei was at. No, she fucking cooked King's Landing. Hey, that's the direction they wanted to go with the character. And as I've had days to process it now, I'm a bit more okay with it than I was when it first happened. You know what I'm saying? It's just like I said, there's not enough time. They didn't give themselves enough time for her to flesh out a true spiraling out of control, because a lot of shit did happen to her in a short period of time. Missandei dying, Rhaegar, all of that shit. A lot of shit happened to her in a short period of time, and that could drive people mad, but it should have been developed a little bit more. But that goes back to the time. More episodes. And I was kind of harsh on her too throughout the reaction. Me and my wife got to calling her a bitch a lot, which, that's her character arc now. To me, I understand it more. I just, like I said, you need more time for that. All right. And that's about it for me with the episode 5. I mean, it is what it is. I enjoy it a bit more now than when I first watched it. But, so we're going to move on to the finale. First off, I'm cool as fuck with the Starks like ruling Westeros, period. Like Starks run that bitch from top to bottom. Cool. I'm cool with that. I remember when I was editing my reaction. And so I get to the end, like the last 5-6 minutes of the episode, and I'm watching it, and all of a sudden, like my eyes watered up, and I was like, what the fuck? Because I didn't get that reaction the first time I saw it. So I'm watching, and at this point, I'm not even editing no more. I'm just watching the end of it. And I thought, man, that was beautiful. That's what it was. From the moment that he comes out and he says his goodbyes to his siblings to the moment he fades off into the woods, like it was great. Like at first you might think that you had a problem with it, but then rewatching it again, and I've seen it several times since then, it brings the emotions out of me. And I'm like, wow, this show that has been a part of my life for like the past 10 years, that's why. This is why this is my favorite. This is why I like watching this show so much. And the surviving Starks have been through the most shit, besides Daenerys, okay? And Bran's been through some shit too, but like there was an entire season Bran wasn't even there. Like he missed an entire season. So I can't really put him on the level that I will Sansa, Arya, and Jon, right? I saw somebody post on there, what was the fucking point of, Jon saying my watch is over and handing the cloak to Ed and all of that shit. Like, that's where he wanted to be. Tormund said that shit earlier in the season. He's like, no, you have the real North in you. And I think that if you look back at his character, he didn't want the Iron Throne. He didn't want King of the North. He didn't want to be over the Night's Watch. He didn't want a lot of shit, but what you never heard him say was that he didn't want to go back to the North. That's where he had met his first true love, his experiences out there, Mance Rayder, him becoming friends with him. And I think it was his experiences outside, beyond the wall, it was just something that was him. He saw that in himself, and besides, man, look, the first Maester from Castle Black in the first season, he was a Targaryen. He gave up his shit for he gave up all his titles and everything to take the Black, and Jon didn't go back to the Wall. He went beyond the Wall. When the episode ends, Jon's beyond the Wall. He's not manning Castle Black. He went beyond the Wall to live out, I guess, his life with Tormund and the Wildlings because he feels like that's where he belongs. You know, Sansa, obviously, I mean, shit, from Joffrey to Ramsay to Littlefinger, she's been through some shit. So seeing her take that throne was so beautiful, right? So beautiful, man. And then there's the Queen of the North, that shit. Oh, I loved it. And then Arya, I seen some shit where somebody was like, you mean to tell me that nobody's ever seen what's west of Westeros? Man, shut the fuck up with that shit. That's being really, really picky. Okay, that's being insanely picky, as a matter of fact. It's not her. She'll never be a wife, I don't think. She probably never have kids. She'll never be a lady of whatever, because she said that's not her. What she is an explorer. And she's been through some shit too. The many-faced god, her early exploits with the Hound or the Brotherhood and all of that shit. So they've been through the most, and to see them get to do something that they wanted, like for a change, to have it be perfectly molded, their future's perfectly molded for them for a change. It was beautiful to watch. I love it. I mean, look, what more could you expect? Like when episode 5 ended and you realized that they only had an hour and 20 minutes more to clean this thing off. Like I seen this list on social media of these are the things that they have to clear up to make this a successful series finale. And it was like 15 things. I was like, there's no way they clear that up. So when you come into like the final episode, how much should you expect, knowing that there's an hour and 20 minutes and there's so much to clear up? You know they're not going to clear everything up, right? And they didn't. Still, I like thinking back on it. I love that fucking episode. Like, oh my goodness. And you know my thoughts on Jon. He had to kill Daenerys. He just had to. I mean. If he doesn't, do you think Sansa can like just straight up and down like just say nope, the North's going to be its own kingdom again? That's just not happening with Daenerys. She'd have flew up there and burned Winterfell to the fucking ground. You know what I'm saying? Arya would have got to do what the fuck she wanted to, no matter who was still alive. Bran obviously would never have been king. They wouldn't have this council where decisions are made. Jon probably for sure wouldn't have got to go beyond the Wall and live out the rest of his life. So yeah, Daenerys had to go. After what she did, she had to go. Jon, I guess, was the one to do it. Tyrion pleaded with him when they had that little meeting. He was basically saying, look, man, and that's what got him too, was that line. He said, you think Sansa will bend the knee? You think Arya's going to bend the knee? And so, you know, if they aren't going to bend the knee, what's going to happen to him? He did Dracarys, right? So he had to do it. He realized he had to do it. And once it happened, I was like, damn, he stabbed that bitch. And I was like, shit. And then Drogon, and look, that's one of the things. Drogon picks her up, flies off. Very, very touching, emotional moment. I don't care where they went. That's for them. That's one of those things like the end of Inception, where Christopher Nolan, the director, people ask, oh, is he still dreaming? He said, no, that's for you to interpret. You take this ending and interpret it the best way you can. And so that's what I feel this moment was. Drogon flew off with Daenerys to who knows where. It says they went east, maybe Valyria. I have no idea. Nobody knows for sure except for, the writers. And I'm totally fine with not knowing where they went. That's there. That's for them. That where they went is for Daenerys and Drogon to keep to themselves. That's something for them to have to say. Talk about the Targaryen, the Jon shit. They went through a great lengths. I mean, that was one of my cheer-worthy moments, was when you saw the baby and it zoomed in on him and all of a sudden it turned into Jon and you found out Jon was a straight-up Targaryen and you're like, oh shit, he's the heir to the Iron Throne, right? Like, so what's gonna happen? Well, nothing happened, really. I think that was one of the things that caused Daenerys to spiral into darkness, was that Jon, she had this other one sitting here who is, his claim to the throne is better than hers. So, that's a little extra something. But that, like I said, the Maester, man, I can't remember what his name was, from Castle Black. He was a Targaryen. He did the same thing. So yeah, they didn't let it really go anywhere. I was a little bit like surprised that they didn't listen. You know, that one scene where they're all sitting there right before they choose Bran to be king, and Grey Worm's like, nah, Jon's our prisoner. I'm surprised they didn't say, well, nah, dude, he's the rightful king. And then so, like, and I'm anticipating them to say that because he's like, well, choose a king. So yeah, it's kind of wasted, but I kind of don't have a problem with it because it's just like what that Maester did. Jon had that knowledge. He said, no, you know what? I mean, what good's it going to do? Because he didn't want the throne. So, and that's another reason why I think Jon wanted to leave. You know, I know you saw that funny meme where it says, okay, Grey Worm's gone now, Jon, you really don't have to leave. He really didn't have to leave. He left anyway. That's because that's what he wanted to do. Like I said, the beauty in those three characters getting to do exactly what they want for the rest of their lives, that makes me smile every time I think about it. So I was satisfied with the ending. Satisfied with it. I've seen it several times since my first watch of it, and it just seems like it gets better and better every time. Of course, it's bittersweet. Like my favorite show, is gone. That was the last time I'm gonna see that, so I'm gonna have to wait for these spinoffs or whatever else they got coming. And so, I was telling somebody yesterday that this series, the final season and the last episode, are so imperfectly perfect, right? Think about that for a second. There's no way. I mean, once season 7 ended and you knew there was only 6 episodes left and they had so much story to tell, and then you get a couple of episodes into this season and you realize there's no way that they can finish off all of this. There's no way. That's the imperfect part about it. But with the time they had left, I guess the things that they chose were more important than other things as far as explaining. This is about as perfect as it's going to get. You understand what I'm saying? Like like I said, if there had been 10 episodes, if season 8 had been 10 episodes and the Night King was already eliminated and you had all of these episodes to clear all this other shit up, good, you can do that. But you didn't have the time. They didn't give themselves the time. And so, yes, imperfectly perfect. That's what I'm gonna use to describe this final season of Game of Thrones. One of the things that made this series in general so great was that it perfectly combined like grand spectacle and great content, right? It was one of those things where it was like big special effects, big moments, big this, big that. Everything looked great, but also the content was there. Great content, great storytelling, great. It meshed together really well. That's one of the reasons why the show was insanely popular as it is. But so when you're thinking about the final seasons, 7 and 8, and 8 in particular, like there's not enough time there. Like I keep going back to that time. So when you think something had to be sacrificed, either grand spectacle or great content, right? It was the content, because we all know, we've seen season 8. It is not lacking in spectacle, baby. It looks great. Except for that first episode, I had some gripes with the VFX. Yeah, but other than the first episode's mishaps, like everything else, I'm talking about perfect, grand scale, big battle sequences. The episode 5 when Daenerys is burning King's Landing, it looks beautiful. So this season, the content, that's what got sacrificed. I don't think season 7 didn't sacrifice the content that much to me, but season 8, though, it had to. Something had to go. With only 6 episodes, one that's 1 hour and 5 that are around an hour and 20 minutes, there's no way you fit it all in. I just keep saying that. It's the reoccurring theme of this podcast, because it's the one thing that gave this season problems. Not enough time. Ramin Djawadi. If you know who that is, that's the composer who does the music for Game of Thrones. Try watching any scene, especially the epic ones from Game of Thrones, without the music. Like half the effect is gone. Like, he has made such beautiful music throughout this entire series. And I download the soundtracks. Like, I got them on my iPod because they're just great to listen to sometimes, especially the one from this final season. That's partly the reason why I get so, so into it that the song is called "The Last of the Starks" that plays with like 6 minutes left in the episode, the final episode, and it just plays out. That music is, and also when John's fading off into the woods, that one's called "The Song of Ice and Fire." Like those are great songs. So I have to give him a shout and thank him for just, or thank D&D, whoever chose this guy. You know what I'm saying? And I mean the opening, the intro, right? Also, I was a little disappointed with the intro to the final episode. I felt like King's Landing should have been on fire, because they did that with Winterfell stayed on fire for like an entire 2 seasons throughout the show intro. And so I thought I had bigger expectations for the intro than what they gave me. It was decent. The music was awesome, obviously, but you know, I figured they go a little bit, you know, show us a little smoke or something. You know what I'm saying? Let us know that, you know, King's Landing was on fire. But yeah, Ramin Djawadi, I hope I'm pronouncing the name right. Kudos to you. Great music throughout the series. One of the main reasons why I love it so much. Me and my boy PJ, last week we were on the boat. Last Sunday before the final episode aired, we was on his boat. We were drinking a couple beers, just taking it all in. You know what I'm saying? Just, you know, basically chilling. And we got to talking about Game of Thrones. And his greatest series of all time is Breaking Bad. I mean, no problems there. Breaking Bad's fucking awesome. It had always been my second though. And he said, you know, when he's one of the people that like barely could make it through the first season. He finally did, and he like binge watched most seasons 1 through 7 leading up to season 8. And so he said when he got finished with season 6 that he was starting to realize why people were saying this is the greatest series ever. But then after season 7 and then what had transpired in season 8, he kind of went back and he's like, nah, Breaking Bad's my number 1. And there's nothing wrong with that, because like I said, Breaking Bad's a great show. And I started thinking about that, you know, and he messaged me right after the episode aired. He's like, yeah, Breaking Bad's still my number 1. And I was like, yeah, man, I got a lot to process right now. And so I've had a week to process it. And I asked myself the question again before I did this podcast. I was like, is this still my favorite series of all time? Is Game of Thrones, in my opinion, still the greatest series in history? In one short word, yes, it is. Well, that's more than one word, but you get where I'm going. I think of the moments that this series has given me over the years. Just so much has happened. I've cheered at this show. I've gotten, you know, super mad to where I slammed the laptop shut when Ned Stark got killed. Like no other series has ever brought emotions out of me like that. You know what I'm saying? And so it still is. This season 8, I have to round, if I'm gonna give it something out of 10, I'm gonna go say 7 out of 10, just because of the stuff that they left unexplained, the stuff that they left that they left out, that they just did away with in order to finish it. But still, I still got grand spectacle. I still laughed. There was still a masterpiece in there. Episode 2, A Night of the Seven Kingdoms, is like 10 out of 10. Some of the best Game of Thrones material ever. And it gave me this ending where after I thought about it and saw that they got to, season 8, 7 out of 10. The final episode, that's a good 9.5 out of 10 for me. I mean, and so up until that point, season 8, the entire series, you know, for me was always a 10 out of 10. Greatest series ever. Now, I mean, it still is. And like, I can't even see, even though season 8 didn't get a perfect score from me, it still didn't knock my ranking down for the series in total. You know, it's still almost 10 out of 10, man. It's just too many great moments in there. Too many just, oh my goodness. Think about the way this thing has impacted pop culture in general. Game of Thrones is everywhere, you know, and people be let down. But once you start realizing, look, they didn't have the time to clear everything up. You should have known that coming in. And so you got the season that you got, and that I am satisfied with. Of course, you got the hiccups. Everybody wants to blame the writing. You know, these guys had this lofty task or these high-ass expectations, and they had to close out all of these stories and these characters, and they had to do it in 6 episodes that were, quite frankly, like just damn near as long as the regular episodes, you know? I saw something on social media. It was like, would you recommend Game of Thrones to somebody who hadn't watched it yet? You damn right I would. This is still my favorite show, my favorite series. This is going to be the standard that I hold every other series that I watch after this too. Even the spinoffs or the prequels or whatever you're going to call it, those things are going to be held to this high standard that Game of Thrones has. And also Bran. I know I'm jumping around, but you know how I do my podcast. Bran becoming king. At first, I know I kind of clapped during my reaction because it was what he said it was like really clever and shit. And then I thought, wait a minute, what has Bran done to deserve to be there? And if that was his journey, so he just legit like let, I don't know how many people get fucking killed along the way so that he can get to the throne. But then once I think about it some more, I'm like, you know what? He's kind of the perfect person for it, right? Of course, yeah, there's people would have better stories than throughout the series than Bran. But I think that he just is perfect for the throne right now. As far as the state that Westeros is in, I think he's perfect for the throne. Also, I was on Eva's, she retweeted some dude's post. I can't remember who it was. I can't remember what it was, but the actual poster for the first season of Game of Thrones. That's actually my lock screen on my laptop. And I had never noticed before that there's a fucking raven standing on the throne. Like right next to Ned Stark, there's a raven. Man, that's foreshadowing at its best. There's no way that that's just a coincidence. There's no way. That's letting you know at some point in time, in my opinion anyway, that a fucking raven will sit on the throne. And lo and behold, as the series have ended, there is a raven sitting on the throne. Well, not actually sitting on the Iron Throne, because Drogon straight burned that shit, like straight melted it. But you get the gist of what I'm saying. So now it even makes more sense to me. So that's it, man. That's my thoughts. I still think it's epic. I still think I think season 8 was pretty damn good, and the series is still my favorite. It's still the greatest. I'm still gonna have Game of Thrones' back when it comes to telling people, and I would still recommend this show to anybody who hadn't seen it yet, and who might be into watching some epicness on whatever, however they're gonna watch it, download it, stream it, or whatever you're gonna do. I would still recommend it to people. I gotta thank some people. All right, first off, my old platoon sergeant, Smoke Caldwell, and one of my soldiers, King. If you didn't know the story, I've talked about it on my YouTube channel, possibly in the podcast before. I don't think so, but I was a big fan of Spartacus. And so I was in my third deployment in Afghanistan, and I had Spartacus ran out. The final season wasn't out yet, and so I needed something else to watch. And if you ever been in the military, you've been deployed. There's plenty of time. That's where you get a lot of your watching done, is during a deployment, where you like watch entire series and things of that nature. And so they like, hey man, just try to watch Game of Thrones. I laughed in their faces like, fuck Game of Thrones. I'm not down with that Dungeons and Dragons bullshit. That was my exact response. They said, nah, man, give it a try. I mean, it's like Spartacus, man. I'm like, all right, I'll give it a try. 10 years later. Well, not 10 years. I think I started watching in 2013. But, I mean, shit, 6-7 years later, I mean, here I am, like one of the biggest fans of the show. And if it wasn't for them, I would never have started watching it. I don't think I would have. And it was in between seasons 2 and 3. So I was able to get 2 seasons in, get me real dug in deep, so that when I got back, I think I got back from that deployment before the 3rd episode of season 3. And I was in love with it. And so I have to thank them for turning me on to it. Another thing this series has done, and I thought about this before, and yesterday I was having a conversation with somebody, Jamie, and she said, I mean, this show, I've met so many people. I mean, on social media, I mean, not in person, but I've met so many people, so many great personalities through this show, that if it was not for Game of Thrones, I would never have met them, would never have conversations with them, would never have discussions about what we think about the episodes and things of that nature. It never would have happened if it wasn't for Game of Thrones. And so the very first person that ever reached out to me because of the Game of Thrones content, and look, before I started doing episode reactions, like I would just throw these random like 5 to 10 minute videos where I just bragged about Game of Thrones for like 5-10 minutes, and then I just threw it on my YouTube channel. So it was one of those. Well, she found me. Eva, and she friend requested me on all social media platforms, and we started messaging and became friends. She's the first one to do that. And, and that's helpful because, if you've been at this YouTube thing for a while and some stuff you're doing is not catching that much traction with anybody and it seems nobody likes it, sometimes you quit doing it because, you feel like nobody's interested in hearing that. And that let me know right there that there was somebody who was interested in my Game of Thrones videos. And now I got this season alone has given me, I can't even tell you how many fucking followers on YouTube, how many subscribers. So I'm thankful for that. Danielle, you know who you are. We've had conversation at length. She also reached out to me because of my YouTube channel, her seeing my Game of Thrones content on there. And we've had conversations. I just want to thank her for taking the time to, subscribe to this bum's YouTube channel, right? Jamie from Sis Nerdly. We talk a lot. And we just talked yesterday, as a matter of fact, where I told you I was going to give you this shout out because we have a lot in common. And I loved her reactions are funny. I loved how emotional she got during her series finale reaction. And so this is my wife, I finally got her to watch it. I think she got caught up by episode 4 of season 7. We really binge watched that shit. Like we started with episode 1 of season 1 and we got caught up to season 7 in like a week. That's a lot of fucking Game of Thrones watching, especially when you consider we still went to work every day and we still had other, parts of our lives that we had to take care of. My boy PJ, I got to thank him for getting on it. I know I've thanked him before, but I'm glad that he finally got on Game of Thrones and was able to at least experience it in some capacity, even if it was rushed because he had to binge watch a bunch of stuff. But he still got to experience it, even though it's not his number one show. And that's okay with me because the one that is his number one is fucking awesome. I'm still glad he got on and still glad he watched it. And that's about it, y'all. To anybody, if I forgot you and we conversated about Game of Thrones, I'm terribly sorry. This podcast, I was trying to make it as perfect as possible, and I knew that I wasn't going to be able to. No matter how hard I tried, there's no way that I'm going to be able to make it perfect unless I get on here and talk for like fucking 6 hours. That's a little long, in my opinion, And so, so this is me, my thoughts, my feelings, my opinions. I hope you guys have enjoyed watching my reactions. Me and my wife react to the season. I have enjoyed you guys' reactions if you make them and I watch them. Yeah, the greatest series in the history of series. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for listening. This is probably the longest podcast that I've done to date. I'd like to thank you all for just taking the time out of your day, to hear your boys' thoughts and opinions and all of that shit about the final season of Game of Thrones. Like I said, final season of Game of Thrones, 7 out of 10. The series overall, I gotta give it it's almost a 10 out of 10 for me because of how special the last episode in the series was. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you guys for listening. ACS Universe Podcast, out.